Hey, Miss Scope. How you going, lads?
We're going very well. Hey, Matty, we were talking before the show. We've got almost 1,000 games of NRL experience on today. So we had Tommy Burgess earlier, followed by Anthony Minicello, yourself, and, of course, Scope. But we also wanted to know how many games of Super League do we have on today's show? What are you contributing?
Oh, I think about 34 or 35 with Challenge Cups and everything included.
Scope, how many for you?
So did you play 2 full seasons over that? Wouldn't be 2 full seasons. Did you only play one, Matty?
Scope. Only played one. You know what? It might be about 25, 26, Scope.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. We went through to the grand final. We got knocked over. What about yourself, Scope? How many you play?
I think it's about 80. You know what? Because if you did play, because I was talking about this with Tommy Burgess as well, Matty. Because the season is so long over there, if you went all the way into the Challenge Cup, I think you're north of 30. If you played all the games and then also into the grand final, because it's quite a unique structure over there with the Challenge Cup in between the Super League season.
It is, isn't it? Like the Challenge Cup, there's so much history in the Challenge Cup. It used to be that way with the English Premier League too. The FA Cup was really prestigious, but it's dropped right off. The Challenge Cup was particularly huge when in England it was a winter game. It was really, really big. It gets a little lost now, but it's still such a premier event. Of course, English Rugby League during the winter years used to be first past the post. They never had grand finals. First past the post wins.
Like the Premier League as well.
And Challenge Cup was the big final.
Gotcha.
Of course, some of the most epic games, rugby league games of all time, have been Challenge Cup finals. Of course, the one that really stands out, 85, Hull versus Wigan, Sterlo versus Kenny, which is classed as one of the greatest games of all time. 101,000 people at Wembley. Wow. Epic game. Brett Kenny got the Lance Todd Trophy, but it's Scope. I don't know how you found it, but when I was over there, the year that I was there in 2001, the English Super League was some of the toughest football I played. The huge big pommy forwards, Warrington, who I think might have got into the finals, maybe even not. They had Alf, Kevy, Tuara Nikau, Andrew G, Lee Breers. St Helens were just star-studded all the way through. Bradford had the Paul brothers, Stuart Field and whatnot. It was, and you're dealing with big guys over there, the pack, aren't they? Like they're big pommy guys, those Northerners.
Yeah, for sure, Matty. Well, it's the same thing. We're talking to Tommy about it, and one thing I don't know if it was the same for you. The physicality was definitely stood out over there, but I found there was so much good, young, or even old talent, like just veterans that just had no ambitions at all to go to the NRL. I thought a number of guys could have been really good NRL players, but it wasn't in their makeup. They were happy. They were homebodies.
Yes.
A lot of them, because I was on the Yorkshire side, so a lot of them used to complain about going over the M54 to Lancashire because it was too far to travel, let alone going to Australia. So there's some really good talent over there, mate.
Oh, the centres for St Helens was Kevin Iro. He was right side centre, and of course he played in the NRL with Manly. But the left side centre was a fella called Paul Newlove. Newlove was about 102, 103 kilos, like Kevin was, and had this about 6'4", a beautiful left foot step. He was a class player, Paul Newlove, and the same with on our left side we had Steve Renoff, who was pretty good centre, and our right centre was Gary Conley, and Gary Conley, mate, he was an incredible player as well. Gary came out here and played with the Bulldogs in 1993, and he came out not necessarily relatively unknown, but early in his career. I mean, Gary Conley's the youngest man, I'm pretty sure, to ever play in a Challenge Cup final. He was 16.
Wow.
Playing for St Helens against Wigan, which Fatty Vaughton and Michael O'Connor played in that game for Saints. Gary was 16. Played against a Wigan side that was just like Ellery Hanley, Sean Edwards, Andy Gregory, star-studded right across the side.
A couple of names you mentioned there too, just quickly, Matty. The Paul brothers, they are absolute legends over there, aren't they? You would have had some good battles against the Paul brothers internationally as well.
Yeah, Robbie was a good player, but Henry was a really special player. Henry, another shame. Henry had signed. This is interesting. When the Auckland Warriors were going to be brought into the competition, Henry was signed by the Auckland Warriors. Now, let me just get the person correct here. But what Wigan did a swap deal. Wigan wanted to bring him over, and the Warriors agreed with a swap deal with Frano Bodica, who'd come across in the All Blacks, was playing for Wigan, and they did the swap. Looking back in hindsight, it was bad business by the Auckland Warriors because Henry would have been as big a legend as Stacey Jones at that club.
Wow.
He and Stacey would have come through simultaneously, and maybe very good chance that they could have won a competition together. He was that good a player, Henry.
Matty, earlier in the week on the run home, we were chatting hall passes. Now,
Yeah.
I wanted to know if you and Trish have ever had the chat about your hall pass and her hall pass.
Well, there's hall passes and there's hall passes. Like I like to have ones that are unrealistic, and then also one that is feasible. So my unrealistic one when I was a kid was Gloria Estefan.
I have no idea who that is.
I know
Yeah.
Gloria Estefan is.
She was a Latino
Yeah,
singer.
yeah, yeah.
She
She's the
was
grouse.
excellent.
She's the Mickey.
Oh, mate.
Yeah.
God, unbelievable. What a voice. And also Salma Hayek.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. I'm seeing a theme
Mexican.
here. Yeah. You like the
Yeah,
Latino
and
women.
My realistic one is just one of the neighbours. So we'll see. I'm working away on that one. I'm mowing
about-
lawns and
Who's Trish's hall pass?
George Clooney and
yeah.
Andrew Johns.
That's very good. Hey, Matty, what about this Kalyn Ponga situation? So
Yeah.
the NRL have given the Knights and Kalyn a 4 p.m. deadline. We haven't heard any news yet for him basically to backflip on his decision. What do you make of it all?
Oh, a T missile, and I'm doing this with no conscious bias. Because I can be critical at times with the Knights. I'm not one of those blokes that, basically every time, you're talking about the Knights are going to win. I can be critical. I do see both sides of this. Kalyn has had a wretched last 2 or 3 years with injury, and I can understand him saying, no, I want to get a full off-season, get everything right. I owe it to the club. However, I can see the NRL's point of view in the fact that you just can't have players knocking back the Australian jersey and what that says. The thing about it is with Kalyn in this whole thing has been too honest. That's what he's been too honest.
Agreed.
Like looking back in hindsight, like a lot of players will do that. Like if he'd have come out of that game and said, "Listen, I've actually strained my medial. I've been carrying it through the final series," and people would go, "Well, understand. There's no problem." But the fact that he's just come out and said and explained it that way, the NRL have quite rightfully stepped forward and said, no, this is not on. Because I remember, boys, like, if you go through the last 20 years, you see guys drop out left, right and centre, but they always use an excuse. An example I've got, in 1999, we got named in the Tri-Nations, right? So we went down, the Tri-Nations was in New Zealand. It was Great Britain and the Kiwis. We went to the Sydney Football Stadium for all our medicals and a training session. So the medical was done, and I think one of the boys might have pulled out. Might have been Shane Weep. He had a niggling injury, so he pulled out. Yep, no problem. And then we went out. Everyone else was given a clean bill of health. And then we went out on the training field, and Billy Johnston just basically gave us a little taste of things to come and just flogged us out on the field doing Malcolms and 200-metre runs. At the end of that training session, you wouldn't believe it, three or four guys had forgot that they've got a knee injury, an ankle injury, one had a shoulder injury, and they pulled out. But because they came out and said, no, I'm struggling with injury, I tried to conceal it and get through the training session, it was kosher. But, with this one with Kalyn, he was just, the way he announced it was a little naive and a little honest.
Yeah, I agree, Matty, with it. Like, I think because if you factor in too with his decision to not play for Queensland last year and everyone understanding that, right, the HIA,
Yep.
I think he sort of just got a little bit mixed up and has probably he would love his time back for sure, and at least have at least spoke to someone privately and then maybe come up with a a different excuse if he did indeed want to sit it out, for sure.
Look, scope missile. I'm going to talk tomorrow and debate this tomorrow with the boys. Is I go back to the fact I think one of the big reasons the NRL here are really going hard is New Zealand 30, Australia 0, right? And the question has to be asked: does the Kiwi jersey at this moment mean more to the New Zealand players than the Australian jersey to the Australian players?
Yeah, well,
I think that's a fair debate at the moment. If you look at the way the Kiwis played that final and just the emotion they played with, I think that is feasible to say that at the moment. And everyone, look, the thing about it is, boys, everyone is not the same. Like, Missile, when you went to the Olympics to represent Australia and stand on the dais and hear the national anthem at the World Champs night, like, I can only imagine the pride you felt.
Yep.
Yeah, other people are just wired differently. Like, for me, I used to sit at traffic lights, right, and look up and think, if the light goes green within 5 seconds, one day I'm going to represent Australia. That's all all these different things. So if this happens, it was all I ever wanted to do. I had a mate who was a musician, and he said, right, what would you rather be? Would you rather be an international rock star or continue with your dream to play rugby league for Australia? For me, it was a no-brainer, rugby league for Australia. Now, that was my ambition, and that's other people's ambition, how they are. Other people, it's just not their ambition. And Kalyn he's a different cat. He's wired differently. And it has surprised me. It is typical of this modern world. When Kalyn came out and said it, I think there was right to be a response, and people say, that can be a little bit poor form. But honestly, some of the outrage and some of the people coming out, some of the things they're saying, like, this is disgusting and whatnot. Hey, guys, honestly, read the papers. Get something else in your life. This is not that big a deal.
Something that is a big deal, Matty. 2 massive games on this weekend, kicking off Friday night with the Roosters taking on the Storm. It seems like an insurmountable task for the Roosters, but can they get it done?
Well, I think if there's an upset over the course of the qualifiers, I think this is the one that's more likely. But playing against Melbourne and playing against Penrith off a 2-week preparation, it is so difficult. But I'm looking at the Roosters pack. They go through that pack: JWH, Lindsay, Spencer, Victor, Crichton, who has been, in my opinion, by a fair way, the best forward in this year's competition. If they can really dominate through the middle of the field, then the Roosters are a red-hot chance. But that's what they have to do. They have to absolutely dominate Melbourne. They just can't hold their own. If they just hold their own, the Storm creatives are just going to drill holes right through the middle field. But if they can win comprehensively through the centre field, then you give them a serious chance. The other one, look, with the Sharks, the back five from the Sharks are going to have to be every bit as good as they were last weekend when they beat the Cowboys. Trindle's got to be every bit as good. Nico's got to get back to his very best. There's so many factors. I'm sorry, I just can't see it. It'd be the biggest boil over, I think, as far as big games are concerned in the last 20 years.
Yeah, I can't think of a prelim where a team like the Sharks has been able to knock off. Well, yeah, I guess we've never seen a team like Penrith, right,
No.
too, Matty, where they've won 3 in a row, going for 4. It would be a huge upset. Just quickly, just before we quickly move off this, Matty, how did you see the form of Sandon Smith specifically? And you talk about, getting on the front foot with the forward packs. Do you think he's got enough in him, based off what you've seen against Manly, to get the job against Munster, and Hughes?
Scope, it was a good experience for him going week 1 of the finals. I think I'm pretty sure it was his first finals game, playing the Premiers at a packed Penrith Stadium, hostile crowd. Cleary's coming back. Panthers on fire. He had a difficult night. He held his hands up okay, but you saw the reward the week after. But this is going to be with Sandon every bit as tough. What we've seen with the Roosters, Scope, is they play their best football when they play a fast, reactive game. Now, I'm not to say that you've got to have a game plan. You've got to have playing, you've got to have principles, you've got to get your set attacking sequences. But for the Roosters, often in the past, that has been their everything for them. I think they're just starting to work out that when you play these sequences, all you're trying to do here is disrupt the defence so a Tedesco or a Sandon can get the ball, or Manu, and just drill through the middle and take an opposition on. They were very good at doing that last week. Look, if they try to be too clever with their sequences and stuff like that, Storm will read it coming a mile. As soon as you set up a shape, Storm will be able to read it. And the best hope for the Roosters is to play really strong power game through the middle, and off that with their attack, just play unorthodox.
Hey, Matty, we've got to let you go. Our SEN listeners can catch you tomorrow morning on Morning Glory at 9 a.m. Just a quick word of warning. When talking about passion for state or country, be careful what you say. It can cause a family feud.
Yes, I know, mate. I know. Yeah, I know. It's like someone said to me, geez, I love listening to your brother. He's a real wit. I said, well, you're half right.
Oh, there he is, Matty Johns.
See you, boys.
That's
Cheers,
thanks to El Jana, where charcoal chicken just tastes better. You haven't had chicken until you've had charcoal chicken with El Jana. Either love it or you haven't tried it yet.